In the vast and scorching wilderness, under the relentless sun, one man walked with a staff in his hand and a burden in his heart. His name was Moses, a man chosen by God, yet often overwhelmed by fear, uncertainty, and the weight of leadership. But Moses didn't begin his journey as a hero. He was born during a time when Pharaoh had ordered all Hebrew baby boys to be killed. His mother, desperate to save him, placed him in a basket and set him afloat on the Nile River. That same river, meant to carry him away, carried him into God's divine plan. He was found and raised by Pharaoh's daughter, growing up in the luxury of the palace, but always knowing he was different. Years later, filled with righteous anger at the mistreatment of his people, Moses killed an Egyptian and fled into the wilderness. He became a shepherd in Midian, far from power, far from influence, and far from the people God had called him to help. But that's where God met him, in the desert, in the quiet. One ordinary day, Moses noticed a bush burning, but not consumed. As he drew closer, God called to him, "Moses, Moses!" "Here I am," he replied. God revealed his plan to send Moses back to Egypt to free the Israelites from slavery. But Moses was afraid. "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" he asked. God answered simply, "I will be with you." Despite his doubts, his stutter, his fears, Moses obeyed. He returned to Egypt, confronted Pharaoh, and with God's power, unleashed 10 devastating plagues. Eventually, Pharaoh relented, and Moses led the Israelites out of bondage, across the Red Sea, and into the wilderness toward the Promised Land. But the journey was far from easy. The people complained. They doubted. They even wished to return to slavery when things got tough. And yet Moses turned to God every time. When they were hungry, God sent manna from heaven. When they were thirsty, God brought water from a rock. When enemies rose against them, God delivered them through Moses' outstretched arms. Through it all, Moses didn't rely on his own strength. He relied on faith. He spent time with God on the mountaintop, receiving the 10 Commandments. He interceded for the people, even when they turned their backs on God. And though he never stepped into the Promised Land himself, he became a symbol of trust, humility, and perseverance. So what does the journey of Moses teach us about overcoming hardships? God uses the broken. Moses was a fugitive, insecure, and hesitant, but God chose him anyway. God equips those he calls. Moses doubted his speaking ability, so God gave him Aaron to help. Faith doesn't mean an easy road. The desert was long and difficult, but God was always present. Leadership begins with surrender. Moses continually laid down his own will to follow God's. Your wilderness has purpose. Every step taught Moses and the people to trust deeper. In your hardest moments, when life feels like a desert, remember the story of Moses. Like him, you may question your strength, but God doesn't ask for perfection. He asks for faith, and with that faith, he will part your Red Sea, feed you in the wilderness, and guide you by his light, one step at a time. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14.